don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a lot of superhero movies out there. The number of blockbusters in the last several years that aren't related in some way to comic books, you could probably count on one hand. With Marvel striking gold with its very cleverly named Marvel Cinematic Universe, we saw how, if planned carefully, you could take a bunch of seemingly unrelated superheroes and bring them all together for some good old fun action. But with what we've seen with DC's efforts, just bringing together a bunch of superheroes in and of itself, it doesn't guarantee a great movie, or even a good movie. There's only so far that name recognition can take you. Think back to those movies that took reality stars or game show winners and just kind of smashed them together in hopes of generating ticket sales. Without any kind of real, tangible substance to hold it all together, even the most famous names in comic books still aren't enough. Now, I'll be honest here. Is Justice League a great movie? No. Is it a terrible, unwatchable mess? Certainly not. It's pretty fun in some parts and it has its own kind of value, I guess. But when you compare it to other offerings from people like Marvel, for example, it really pales in comparison. Now, the question is, why? The main MacGuffin of this movie are the mother boxes. 3 boxes that contain power, whatever that means, and if they're all in the same place, then a whole bunch of bad mojo happens. Now, the parallels against Disney's Infinity Stones are pretty obvious. But more than that, you see, the Infinity Stones have been part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe since pretty much the beginning. Slowly, over the course of many movies, we've gotten to know and understand what these stones are, and what they do, and what they mean. In Justice League, these boxes kind of just come out of nowhere like, oh hey, so these have been here the whole time, by the way. One of the main appeals, I guess you could say, of these kinds of movies is that we get to see all the different superheroes we've seen up to now all together in one space. It's kind of like a payoff for investing our time and money in the first however many movies there have been. And because we're so familiar with these characters, we don't need any backstory or setup, we can just get going from the beginning. But in Justice League, we're just kind of suddenly introduced to like 3 new characters, 4 if you count that random Russian family, each with about 10 seconds of backstory. And then we're just kind of supposed to have some sort of emotional connection with them. One thing Marvel has always done well is having characters who knew when to be serious and when to be witty. The Avengers team has always had characters like Iron Man and the Hulk who were always bickering back and forth and throwing around sarcasm, so the movies were always enjoyable in a sort of lighter tone kind of way. Now, contrasting this against DC characters, you start to notice that DC superheroes are pretty serious and kind of boring. I mean, the most interesting characters in Batman, for example, are all the supervillains. You got Joker, Harley Quinn, Penguin, really lively, exciting characters. Batman as a character is dark and rough and grumbly, and then Superman is an invincible god who's kinda rough and grumbly, and even the new Aquaman and Cyborg characters we see in Justice League, they're both kinda brooding and rough and grumbly. Trying to balance this, we have of course the new Flash character and his definitely not trying to be Peter Parker personality, and it's commendable, but it just doesn't quite work. Although I will say, making Aquaman cool is certainly commendable, but by the same token, while everyone else is dark and brooding or kind of sarcastic or whatever, the character of the Flash really clashes with the rest of the entire movie. I mean, at times, it felt like I was watching a character from some Disney Channel original movie from the early 2000s. At the same time, this dark, gritty world that all the DC movies take place in my opinion, is one of the DC universe's biggest flaws. The idea of doing straightforward, sort of serious superhero movies has, for the most part, faded away. I mean, look at what Marvel is doing with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and most recently Thor Ragnarok. Now, you may or may not like the particular direction these movies are going in, but at least Marvel is trying something new. They're changing aesthetics, ideas, themes, and again, whether you like it or not, that's completely up to you. Watching Justice League, it just felt like a Marvel movie from like 4 years ago. But all of these are symptoms of what I think is the real problem with Justice League and the DC Universe as a whole. And that, simply put, is that Marvel got there first. No matter what DC does with any of its movies, it will always be compared to Marvel, whether they want to or not. I mean, in a vacuum, Justice League and Batman vs. Superman or any of their DC movies, they would be seen as pretty good. Lots of action, cool CG, I mean, the individual parts are there. But these movies don't exist in a vacuum, and by default, they're sort of playing catch-up with Marvel. It's a case of DC trying to keep up with the Joneses, I guess you could say. I mean, hey, it worked for Marvel, surely we can make it work, right? When Marvel approached their universe, they were in many ways breaking new ground with rewriting entire character arcs and backstories and rethinking what a superhero is with a more modern context. Now, whether you think they succeeded or not is a different conversation, but objectively speaking, Marvel was trying something new that hadn't really been done in the same way before. With DC's approach, however, it really just feels like a case of, maybe we should try that too, without really thinking about how to do it right, or at least different. There are a lot of factors that went into making Justice League a substandard offering. They leaned a bit too hard on lifeless CG, they tried to balance serious and comical, which is good, but it really felt unbalanced. And the literal mustache-twirling villain made it pretty hard for me to take this movie seriously. I mean, if your villain's main motivation is, he's a powerful alien who wants to conquer the world because, he's a powerful alien who wants to conquer the world. If that's your villain, you might want to go back and revise your script a little bit. With everyone and everything trying to make their own cinematic universe nowadays, I think DC is the first casualty we're seeing of the superhero bubble starting to burst. People are getting tired of this age of 50 comic book movies a year, and for DC, I think it's largely just a matter of bad timing. It's too little, too late, and everyone's kind of moved on. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I actually thought the movie was pretty good. Was it great? No, but I don't think it deserved quite as many criticisms as people said. I mean, really, at the core, at least this, from my perspective, it's a Marvel movie from, like I said, 4 years ago. If this movie had come out 4 years ago, we would have thought it was a fantastic movie. But because of the timing and because of the sort of environment that it's in, we view it in a different way. I mean, definitely there were problems that were unique to it. Like I thought some of the characters were really boring. And then, the Flash, who they tried to make the comic relief, it was way too clashing with the rest of the movie, I felt. But I mean, all the parts were there. It was okay. The best anyone could hope for with this Justice League movie was that it was okay. And it was. It was an okay movie. I think Rotten Tomatoes has it 40%. I don't think it's that bad, but it's definitely not fantastic either. And one of the things I mentioned a little bit in the video is how, recently Marvel is really taking things in a different direction. You got Thor Ragnarok, which is all 80s and stuff, and then you have Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was also really 80s, and so they're trying different things and new things, and it seems like they're really trying to stretch themselves and kind of keep things new and fresh, whereas DC is just treading the same tracks that Marvel did, like I said, a couple years ago. The DC movies and, of course, Justice League itself could have been really great. And even if it was exactly the same way it was, if it had come out just a little bit earlier, I think we all would have viewed it in a much more positive light. But, that's my opinion. Anyway, thanks for watching. I wanted to go back to 70s style again, just because I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of Brock Berrigan, who is the music behind this video. His SoundCloud's down below. He just has this amazing sense of funk hip hop. And so listening to that music, I was I really want to make a video styled to this music. And so, I could have made this just a regular video, but I was if you're gonna do something, you might as well go all the way with it, right? So I decided I would make things a little bit different, a little bit interesting. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it didn't just detract from the message, whatever that was. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Twitter and all that, because, YouTube's all fickle about everything nowadays. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time with a new video.